Hello, everybody. This is Dr. Duke, and welcome to another episode of Right Makes Might. Glad you are here with me today. And today we're going to tackle the transforming of American culture. For a lot of years in the schools, the universities in particular, there was a theory of progressivism that began to trickle down to our kids. All ideology, all argument, and mostly limited to the college campuses. Now we are in a transformational period where all of that activism has paid off for progressives, and we're beginning to see the very fascist consequences of what's being taught in the schools now being put into practice in our country. One example, plucked from the headlines, Portland Public Schools Board voted unanimously recently that they were going to ban all textbooks, all scientific textbooks, all textbooks in general from the public schools that either question global warming or suggest it may not be true, or, more alarmingly, any book that suggests that we don't quite know the causes of man-made global warming or minimizes the potential role of the human actions behind it. Those books are going to be banned as well. So Portland school kids in science class now will not ever be allowed to learn that there are real scientists who have doubt, and that many scientists who accept the premise of climate change don't necessarily accept the idea that human actions, human behavior, is a critical aspect of the changing climate. All those views will be gone now. In other words, science is no longer about science and doubt and skepticism and being able to prove, and replicate an experiment. Based on what we cannot prove as absolute science, our kids will get one view of science. The great scientist, the great 20th century scientist, one of the great scientific minds of our age, Richard Feynman, who was a big player in the Manhattan Project in World War II, splitting the atom. Feynman once said that science is a culture, by nature, science is a culture of doubt, whereas religion is a culture of faith. If you're going to believe in God, you have to take seriously the possibility of faith. If you don't believe faith is possible, then belief in God is impossible. But science, Feynman said, is primarily a culture of doubt. That for science to work, we must start and maintain a premise of skepticism, doubt, and disbelief until something is proven beyond an absolute empirical science shadow of a doubt. That hasn't been done with climate change, number one. And number two, it certainly hasn't been done with the causes of climate change. So here you have the little fascists who run Portland schools dictating that we will take certain aspects of science absolutely on faith which belongs to religion, as Feynman said. We are going to take an unscientific approach to scientific questions in our Portland public schools. And at the school board meeting where this was passed, one of the great experts they brought forward to testify about the need for this kind of ban, this censorship in science classes, was a high school student by the name of Gabby Lemieux. Here's what she testified. Here's a direct quote from her testimony before the Portland Public Schools Board. Quote, "Climate education is not a niche or a specialization. It is the minimum requirement for my generation to be successful in our changing world." Wait a second. She says that it is our minimum requirement as students not to be able to read, not to be able to do math, not to be able to do science at a high level, not to be able to think critically. The minimum requirement for me as a high school kid to succeed in the world is climate change ideology. Let that sink in for a minute. How does a young girl like that come to that conclusion unless she's been handed to it by one-sided dialectic from the time she started going to school? Well, not surprisingly, besides Gabby, you have Bill Bigelow, a former Portland high school teacher who testified. He's no longer a high school teacher. He is now, lo and behold, the current curriculum director and editor for Rethinking Schools, a magazine devoted to, wait for it, educational issues and environmentalism. So besides a high school student lecturing adults, lecturing the rest of us about that she needs environmental ideology to succeed more than anything else in this world, now you have a completely partisan member of the global warming lunacy fringe testifying before the Portland School Board that, yep, this is what we have to do. He actually opened at the meeting a Pearson Publishing textbook on science and read the following sentence, quote, "Carbon dioxide emissions from motor vehicles, power plants, and other sources may contribute to global warming. That's a direct sentence from a Pearson science textbook. Sounds pretty reasonable, right? Even if you don't believe or are skeptical of climate change, you certainly can understand the sentence, right? It's possible that that carbon dioxide from cars, that power plants and other sources may contribute to global warming. That is a scientifically accurate statement. We don't know for sure, but it's possible. Well, Mr. Bigelow blew up, right? This is his comment on that quote. Bigelow said, quote, "This is a section that could have been written by the Exxon Public Relations Department, and it's being taught in Portland schools." Unquote. We must stop it at once. These are the kinds of statements that are being banned from Portland public school kids from reading. Simply the idea that something may happen because it hasn't scientifically, categorically been proven. And so now, in an entire school district, for the city of Portland, all schools, from kindergarten through high school, our kids are going to be taught one really, really questionably scientific way of seeing things. And it's not even so much the question of global warming. We're not even necessarily talking here about whether you do or don't believe in it. We're talking about the attitude of these bureaucrats, of these ideological politician types, right? That says that you will learn my view of history and science, even if they are not historical, and even if the science isn't settled. You will learn our view and nobody else's. Welcome to the small world of fascism.
This is Right Makes Might with Dr. Duke.